podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Thanks for choosing this free Anfield Index podcast. If you'd prefer to listen to this or any of our other shows without adverts, then now's the time to check out Anfield Index Pro. With AEye Pro, you can supercharge your entire listening experience. You'll not only get all of our podcasts without the ads, but you'll have them far faster with our quick publish feature available exclusively for subscribers. AEye Pro also puts you in the heart of our sound studio, with an option to listen to many of our shows live and interact with the podcasters in real time as the shows are recording. Upgrading couldn't be easier. AEye Pro is available on all popular podcast platforms, and we have our own apps for Apple and Android. Just head on over to AnfieldIndexPro.com and get started today.
Hello and welcome to AEye Scouted on Anfield Index Pro. I'm Dave Hendrick, joined as always by Mr. Karl Matchett. How are you, sir?
I've almost had enough of listening to you this week, but I've just about got enough in me for one more pod.
Jesus, you're just rude. Just rude. We are here today to talk about Liverpool travelling to Manchester in the early kickoff on a Saturday after an international break, once again, to take on Manchester City. Karl, Liverpool just get this fixture. That's just what it is. Every single international break, it's just us on in the early kickoff and generally away from home. Is that because Liverpool are so innately popular? Is it, do you think, some sort of punishment for Jurgen consistently complaining about these games? Or is it just that the Greater Manchester Police are legitimately worried about the ability to police the crowd?
I guess we'll have to take the latter option for this particular one, but I don't think that impacts on previous international breaks, does it? I get the TV thing. I do. I'm not a fan of the 12:30 kickoff slot in general. I don't think it makes for the best of matches with weird regularity. But you just kind of got to deal with it. If you're on TV and you're good, then you're going to get odd slots on different days. So the fact that we have more than anybody else is marginally irksome, but up until last season, we had started to get a pretty good record on them. I know a lot has been made about the defeats that we had last season, but last season we were crap whatever time the kickoff was. So that doesn't really matter.
That's very true. It's very, very true. Last season we were just dreadful. It had little to do with the idea of it being the 12:30 kickoff. We were just garbage from start to finish. We were really, really poor. I do think there's probably a factor in it that Jurgen complains about it so much that the Premier League just want to bite back a little bit against them. But Cy Brundish has talked about this. The bigger effect with us is obviously we have players coming back from South America. They'll get back, having played last night, they'll get back at some point today. It's a very short turnaround for them. So I think that's where a factor of it comes in. Because let's be honest, Manchester's not a long journey from Liverpool. A lot of our players live in Manchester. So it's not a major thing travel-wise. It is more the turnaround from when those players get back to when they can actually get to work. We also had news that this game will be refereed by Chris Kavanagh, who is from Greater Manchester. Now, I will point out that Chris Kavanagh, in general, has been a favourable referee to us. 15 games, 12 wins, 3 draws. So it's not like he has screwed us over in the past. Now, he's never refereed us against either of the big Manchester clubs, but he is a referee that we've done well under before. So I think, despite the fact that there's going to be lots of conspiracies around it, the chances are he's not a City fan or a United fan. He could be, I don't know, a Blackburn fan. He could be a Wigan fan. He could support any of the 20 clubs in the Greater Manchester region. In the same way that for many years, people would crib and cry when Mike Riley would referee Liverpool games because he lived on the Wirral. Was it Mike Riley? Is he the one that lived on the Wirral? and supported Tranmere?
Mike Dean.
Mike Dean. Mike Dean was the one. Oh, yeah, Mike Riley's from Leeds. When Mike Dean would referee us, people would complain about it, but Mike Dean was a season ticket holder and remains a season ticket holder at Tranmere. So I get that people are looking for things to complain about, but I feel like this might be a bit silly. There's a disproportionate number of referees from the Greater Manchester region. You're going to end up with some of them in these games.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like looking for that, especially ahead of the game, as a potential reason for, underperformance or decisions not going against us or whatever. I'm pretty set, and I've said before, I don't think that there's massive bias in the Premier League. I just think that too many of them are rubbish. Not up to the standard that we would like them to be, basically. I mean, with Chris Kavanagh in particular, last time he refereed Man City, they lost. So I don't know how people are going to turn around then and say, since September start of the season, he's refereed us against West Ham, we won, against Forest, we won. He's refereed Newcastle v Man City in the League Cup, which Newcastle won. So are they then going to turn around and say, oh, he's been against us all along? It just doesn't fly. It makes no sense. It's a load of nonsense.
Exactly. It's not that the referees are biased. They're just bad. Like, Kavanagh's not a bad referee. I think he's okay. He's one of the better ones in the league. But when you see a lot of the incompetency that goes on, it is just because they're bad at their jobs. It's not because they're biased one way or another. Now, my bigger concern would be Stuart Atwell on VAR, because I do think he's poor. I think he's legitimately poor. But at the same time, if we don't give them the opportunity to influence the game, then they can't influence the game. If we do the right things and play the right way and take our chances and defend well, then we can eliminate the impact a referee can have on the game. A lot of people will point to, oh, well, Chris Kavanagh's the referee that missed the Rodri handball against Everton a few years ago. Okay, right, he missed that result impacted Everton. We like to point at that as a reason we lost the league. We lost the league by drawing too many matches. We cost ourselves the title. The Rodri handball, yeah, it's a nice excuse to have. The reality of it is we lost the league because we drew too many matches. Simple as that. And if people could wrap their heads around that, I think they'd find things a lot easier to cope with. We didn't lose either league title where we finished second to City by a point because of refereeing decisions. We lost them because we drew too many games. And if we'd won the games that we drew, a couple of them that we threw away wins in, we would have won the league title that year. So I just wanted to get the referee thing out of the way early, because I know it's colouring a lot of the discourse around this game in the lead up to it. Let's move on to City first. So injury-wise, Kevin De Bruyne out, Mateo Kovacic out, John Stones out, Matthias Nunes out. They've all been seemingly ruled out. Seemingly.
Are you that person who has everything? The coolest merch and those must-have fan threads? Well, over at our Anfield Index shop, we've gone that extra mile when it comes to pimping up your Liverpool collection. From our popular range of bespoke design t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies and hats, to our signature edition mugs, prints and coasters, all provided with fast worldwide shipping. We have something for every red. We also stock official LFC merchandise and are licensed with the Premier League and UEFA to sell official iron-on shirt badges and sleeve patches. As a listener to this podcast, you can get 10% off everything with coupon code AEyePro10. Just head over to AnfieldIndex.shop or find us on Etsy by searching for Anfield Index.
Sergio Gomez, Nathan Ake, Ederson and Erling Haaland are doubtful, but I'm guessing they'll all be fine to play.
Ake, I think, would be okay. He did miss the Chelsea game. That's a bit different, but if he missed the Chelsea game and the international break, that's now 3 weeks, and they did sort of say it was not a major thing. Ederson, it was an impact injury and he didn't play for Brazil. He'll be fine. He'll play. Rodri, again, discomfort. Left out of one game, played the other one. He'll be fine. And Haaland, obviously, Norway were already done. So the fact that Ståle Solbakken said that he could have played against Scotland, but they just didn't want to risk him, I think that sort of tells you everything you need to know. He will be absolutely fine.
Yeah, he will. Last season, we played them at Anfield and we beat them 1-0. We played a very disciplined 4-4-2 and we soaked up pressure. We got otherworldly performances from Virgil, from Joe as the centre-back pairing, from Thiago and Fabinho as the holding midfield pairing. Robbo played well at left-back. James Milner played well at right-back. Harvey Elliott was very, very diligent and hard-working on the right side of midfield, very disciplined in his defensive work. Diogo Jota was outstanding on the left wing. And then Bobby and Mo through the middle both played really well in the limited scraps they had to deal with. And we completely took Erling Haaland out of that game. He had one opportunity, which he headed straight into Alisson's hands. Away to City last season, Haaland missed the game. And I remember we talked about it in the build-up on one of these. And we both said that we thought they would cause us more trouble without Haaland. And that turned out to be the case. They absolutely rinsed us, beat us 4-1, and used a lot of movement, a lot of speed to cause us real problems and make us look quite poor on the day. I wonder if the same would be true this weekend. Would they nearly be better off not starting Erling Haaland and looking to potentially play Alvarez as the 9, which they did last year? Now, the difference here is KDB is injured, Gundogan and Mahrez are gone. But could they go with Foden instead of KDB, Bernardo instead of Gundogan, and maybe Doku instead of Mahrez, and look to go with that 3-2-4-1 shape? 5 attacking players, none of whom are a real number 9, but all of whom could cycle through that position. And then obviously no Stones, but you could play Rodri and maybe it's Aki or Akanji or Rico Lewis sit in the double pivot, and then say Akanji, if it's Rico Lewis, say it's Akanji, Diaz, and Gvardiol or Aki as the back 3. Would that worry you more than the idea of Erling Haaland? Because I don't think he's played well this season despite the goals.
I don't think it would worry me more, no. Man City is going to be a really, really hard game regardless of who plays. Like even if Haaland and Ederson didn't recover, I don't think it would necessarily be any less of a difficult game. I mean, obviously there might be a bit better chance of scoring a goal because Ederson, in terms of positional play and shot stopping, is obviously more rhythm than Ortega or whatever. But I don't think it would be any more of a difficult game. I don't think it'd be less of a difficult game. I don't think it would make that much difference because Man City are just very, very good and have a whole bunch of players, and regardless of one end of the pitch or the other, and which individual is there at any given moment, it's their cohesion, it's their rotation of positions, it's the amount of possession that they have, all of that stuff, which makes it a really difficult game. So I wouldn't be less worried if Haaland played, for sure. I wouldn't be more worried if he was, regardless of him being on the bench or not. I just think that if we are really good defensively, there's more chance of him scoring than anybody else if a chance falls his way. But Liverpool are going to have to play so well, like incredibly well, the best defensive game of the season so far, to stop City, whoever is playing, getting that big chance, that I just don't honestly think that it makes that much difference. I think everything about Liverpool's chances of result here depends on our midfield and how engaged we can make them be and how good the partly the link up between the forward players and the midfield players, but also partly the just the defensive integration between the two lines as well. I think that's what dictates whether we will get anything from this game or not, rather than whether it's Haaland or Alvarez or Foden or Silva or whatever.
I feel like the rotation of players in that attack is better and more fluid when Haaland's not there, because their system when he's in the team is basically 10 men doing what City do and then him. Whereas when he's not there, it's 11 players doing what City do. Now, obviously, he's capable, and he's shown he's more than capable of playing outside of their system and still scoring ludicrous amounts of goals. I just feel like the team as a whole tends to perform a little bit better when he's not there, in terms of just their build-up play, the cohesion, where the chances come from. But like, he is an incredible threat.
I think it's fair to say about the build-up play maybe being better, but I also think that maybe in these games, it doesn't really matter if you play particularly well. You just want the win, and for that, you do just need a goal. And even if someone has a stinker and scores for that game, it's probably all right, huh?
Yeah, that is fair. That is fair. So our record at the Etihad under Jurgen has not been good. We went there in his first game against City and we blew the doors off them, beating them 4-1. Since then, which was 8 years ago, 8 years since that game, 8 years yesterday, I think. Yeah, 8 years yesterday, we went there and beat them 4-1. Since then, we've only won there once, and that was in a Champions League tie where we beat them 2-1. Other than that, they have beaten us, and they've beaten us heavily a couple of times. There was the 5-0 when Sadio got sent off. There was the 4-0 when we already had won the league and the players were still clearly drunk. And then obviously last season when we were, we were garbage. Like, let's be fair, we were garbage. That was just before we figured things out and changed the shape. We got beaten 4-1. So it hasn't been a happy hunting ground for us. It's been a bit of a bogey ground. But I still feel like maybe at the moment, with the way we're playing and the way they're playing and this kind of newfound or newly rediscovered toughness to this team, that maybe we're in a position to go there and get a result. We currently sit second in the league, obviously, just behind them, a point behind, 12 games in. I think we'd all have taken that to begin the season. We'd all have taken to be a point behind them after 12 games. And I feel like I'm more confident than I thought I would be about going there. I'm not saying we go there and win, but we go there and get a result. We go there and put in a bit of a performance. I think with the way Alisson's playing, the way Virgil is playing, the way Szoboszlai is playing, and with the way Mo and Darwin are playing in attack and the understanding that the two of them have developed and the speed that they move at, I feel like that's a bit of a recipe to do well against City, who, let's be fair, have not been at their all-conquering best so far this season.
Well, I think that last point is where you start if you're going into the game against City, to be honest. They're top, which, we can't go overboard, therefore, because if you're saying City haven't been amazing and they're still first by a point, then, it doesn't say a huge amount about everybody else. But if you look at, let's say, the recent form guide, which again, we're not going to put too much emphasis on any single thing because this is a match in isolation, but recent match, 6 matches, City in 9th. They've won 3. They haven't won 3. And, rather than break it down into draws and defeats, Premier League title has basically become about how many matches you win and how many you don't, regardless of what you do in those matches. Like you said, you lose out by drawing too many games, not just by losing a couple of games. So we've been marginally better than them over the last 6 by a point. We haven't been the best in the league by any stretch of the imagination, but we've put ourselves second without really anybody talking about Liverpool. It was all about, obviously, Arsenal at the start of the season and how many steps they're going to take forward by signing the players they did. Then suddenly it was Spurs. Obviously, Man City are still topping the ones to beat and all the rest of it. And so we've kind of just gone second. And I don't even think that we've been at 100% in the most recent of matches. We played quite well against Brentford, but even so, I wouldn't say we're outstanding. We were dismal against Luton. And obviously against Brighton, we were hit and miss in different spells of the match. So we've got room to improve, but we've also played better in some matches this season. So we know that we can improve even without changing anything, let's say. Man City over the last half a dozen, we'll stick with that. Against Wolves, there was a very, very clear way Wolves won that game. There was a very clear way that Arsenal managed to win the game. Let's say in talking about their intentions and how they tried to play, not necessarily by the fact that they won 1-0, because I don't necessarily think that they deserved to win in terms of being an outrageously good team or anything, but the way that they tried to win was a very, very clear one. And Chelsea drawing, it was a mental game, 4-4, fine, but the way that they tried to win, again, was really, really clear. And I think that all three of those matches have shown how you have to play against Man City at the minute. Firstly, that's attack them, play to win the game. That's something that Man City have got away with for years now because people are too scared to go out and play attacking, winning football against them. Whatever way your attacking, winning football is, whether that's launching it every single time and playing for the second balls, or whether that's free-flowing, great transition play, blah, 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 blah. It doesn't really matter. They've struggled when teams have gone out to play against them and win. That's what it is. And Wolves were unbelievable at this for large stretches of that match. They, I would say, in that Man City game, fully deserved to win. I know they only had 3 shots, but compared to the quality of chances that Man City had for the most part, compared to how brave Wolves were, how front foot they stayed even after conceding the equaliser, everything else, I thought Wolves were brilliant that game.
Yeah, same.
And Arsenal, like I said, I don't necessarily think that was an amazing all-round performance, but they outshot City. They did outshoot them by being really brave and trying to get in decent positions and being very brave in terms of committing players forward. The winner, when it came, obviously, whatever, that's fine. It's late on in the game and it could have gone either way, same as the Chelsea match could have. But both of those teams got their reward by continually attacking Man City, not sitting off for 20 minutes at a time and letting them have the ball and eventually making a mistake. They just got the ball and they went for it. And Wolves did exactly the same. And Wolves are nowhere near as good as Man City, let's be honest.
No.
But they played the right game against Man City, and they have really struggled this season when teams go at them again.
Yeah, I mean, you've nailed it. Like, how many times have you watched a City game against anybody and just thought, this lot are scared to attack City. They're just rolling over. They've accepted that they're going to lose and their entire game plan is damage control. They don't want to get hammered. So they're happy to lose as long as it's not by too big a scoreline. Now, sometimes there will be teams that are naive against City and they'll go and try and play free-flowing football. That's not what Wolves or Arsenal or Chelsea did. They never abandoned their defensive principles to overload into attacking areas. Wolves, I think they put up the best performance against City that I've seen this season. Better than Arsenal, better than Chelsea, because they kept that really strong defensive base, but both Semedo and Aït-Nouri as wing-backs continued to bomb forward, while Lemina and João Gomes sat in front of the back 3. So they kept that block of 5 defensively and committed the other 5 to attack. And City had real trouble that day dealing with Neto and Matheus Cunha and their speed and their movement. Now, it strikes me that we have speed and movement in our attack as well that I think could cause them problems. And against Chelsea, we saw a very ragged defensive performance from City. Like, you go back and you look through the goals that City conceded in that game, they're all poor goals from a defensive point of view. The Thiago Silva one, he's allowed to run a long way across their defence to get his head on that corner. Gets there, nobody there to compete with him, nobody there to contest it. And he heads it across the goal, and there's no one on the back post. One defender on the back post clears that. One defender blocking at the front of the 6-yard box clears that. That's just a breakdown in what your defensive shape should be on a corner. The Raheem Sterling goal, the defence is all over the place. It's an absolute mess. The Nicholas Jackson goal, why is Ruben Diaz lying on the floor? Like, why is he lying on the floor? And why is nobody following in case the goalkeeper spills the shot? And then the penalty. What is Ruben Diaz doing? Why is he hurling himself across like that? There's no way that's ending in anything other than a penalty, the way he commits into that challenge. Like, those goals, they're the sign of a defence that we all think of City and think, oh, they're a really good defensive team. Like, you know, they're always the best or one of the best defensive teams in the country. But a big part of that is because teams don't actually attack them. They don't have big amounts of defensive work to do. Now, in previous seasons, we haven't had a lot of defensive work to do either, but we've still known that if we have to, our defence is capable. I'm not sure their defence is all that capable when teams fully commit to going at them. Now, the Wolves game and the Arsenal game, we should point out, Rodri was suspended. And that's an enormous loss for them. He's the best in the world in his position. He also missed out in the Newcastle game that you referenced earlier in the League Cup, which they lost. And, you know, he wasn't there 3 games in a row. They lose all 3. Hello, I'm here to annoy you. I'm here to annoy you into listening to more of me and more of others on EPL Index. We don't just have the Anfield Index stuff. We've got EPL Index as well, which covers the entirety of the Premier League. And we have 3 podcasts and a whole bunch of really good writing on EPLindex.com. The podcasts are my own Two-Footed podcast, which is every day at 4 p.m, Monday through Friday, covering the whole league. We have A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. You know Tadiwa, he does Anfield Index. He presents A Tad Predictable before every Premier League match week. And then Kevin DeVries and his crew on the EPL Roundtable, they're every week after the Premier League match week. So make sure you listen to everything we're doing on EPL Index and follow us there on Twitter at EPL Index. Thank you. Bye-bye. You can probably point to his absence as you know, a large contributing factor to the fact they lost those 3 games. But at the same time, I do think Wolves, Arsenal and City, like you said, they showed a bit of a blueprint as to how you go about playing City. And you can do it in your own manner, whether that's you play a back 3 and you sit your 2 holding midfielders and you commit the others forward, whether you play a back 4 and you sit 2 and you commit 1 full back going forward, but you have still a bank to defend with. I feel like this team can be gotten at if you're brave enough to go at them. And I do think we'll be brave enough to go at them.
Yeah, I do think that we will, certainly in spells as well. I think that there's probably parts of the game where we will have to absorb a bit of pressure and stand a bit firm. And we can go into the best ways to do that shortly as well. But I think having that willingness to do it in the first place and the physical ability to do it more or less all game long, not non-stop, but all game long, whether that's 3 minutes apart or 10 minutes apart or 15 minutes apart in the spells that you get to do it, you still have to continually do it. Otherwise, that is when they start, bring the fullbacks out of position, when you start moving an extra midfielder into the final third, then it becomes really, really difficult to break out of your own defensive shape then. Look, City have conceded 12 goals. There's a few teams who have conceded either very similar or fewer than them. That's not normal for who you would suspect to be comfortably the best team in the world, with a new addition of big money in the defensive ranks and so on and so forth. And don't want to go too much into individual defenders because they've chopped and changed quite a bit there, which is probably another contributing factor.
Yeah.
Rodri, I 100% agree. He was a big factor, especially against Arsenal. I thought that he was like an obvious miss there. But he did play against Chelsea, and I thought Chelsea were really good at making a box basically around him in the middle. Caicedo and Enzo are noticeably deeper too. Conor Gallagher is always the one ahead of them anyway, but also then Cole Palmer came very centrally when Chelsea had possession, and they were able to play around him and Akanji when he stepped in as well. It was a really, really clever box. Sterling then pushing forward with Jackson. I thought Pochettino did a really good job in that central area.
Yeah, that 4-box-2 caused City a lot of trouble. City had trouble picking up where the ball was going to go and where the runners were going to go. And like you said, they built it around Rodri, and they just eliminated his ability to be that defensive fulcrum for them because he was having to chase in all different directions. We are capable of playing a shape like that. We have the players to do pretty much what they did. You know, it's just a matter of whether or not Jurgen is willing to go with a back four in this game and play a box four in midfield, or will he just decide we play a 3-box-3? That's what we do. We're going to go there and do it. Now, not just last season when we played 4-4-2, we've also gone there and played 4-4-2 a couple of years ago. I think we were both quite surprised when Jurgen went there in, was it April 2022, and was really aggressive with his front four.
Is that the one where we had Jota right wing, was it?
Jota right wing, and we got a 2-2 draw.
Yeah.
And we caused them a lot of trouble that day.
And he spoke about that then as a system he would use going forward with more regularity, and we didn't at all.
And didn't do it at all. On City, just to put a bow on them, in terms of what we expect their team to roughly be, you've mentioned the fact that the defence does tend to rotate. And that was the same last season as well. And look, City are top of the league. We know they can get better. That's the scary thing with them. We know they can get better. It would be a surprise if they don't win the league this season. It would be a little bit of a surprise, to be honest, if they don't win the Champions League this season. And last season, we saw them be fairly average by their standards up until February. And then they started to do Manchester City things. And in the end, they ran away with the league and had it won with 2 games left to go and just could take their foot off the pedal and focus in on completing the treble that they were aiming for. It feels very much like this is what they're doing again this season, where they're just sort of managing their way through this early portion of the season. And we know there's other gears for them to go up through post-Christmas. And obviously, they've got arguably their best player still to come back in, which will be a huge boost to them if he stays fit, which, again, he might not, considering he's had 2 serious hamstring injuries now in the last 6 months. But it just kind of feels like this is the right time to get City because they're not yet in title-winning mode, which doesn't really kick in for them until February, March kind of time, like last season and in previous seasons as well.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, it's one thing obviously saying they've not been at their best when it comes to the biggest games. There's a reason City won all the trophies last season, obviously. So, we have to preface anything of they're not at their best by the fact that they can be when they want to be. And I do often think that in terms of not necessarily the scorelines that we've just spoken about, but Man City's football, when teams really go at them, sometimes I think that brings out their best football. Like it can be, I understand why people say sometimes it's a bit boring to watch Man City because, if teams sit back and try to soak up pressure, they just pass and play it and rotate it and wait for their chance and maybe score a goal or two. But when teams do come at them and they're forced to play quicker and they can look for transitions and spaces behind and everything else, I think sometimes that's City's best football on show very, very quickly. Again, depends on which players they've got there. It's very, very different having the mentality of Rodri and able to pick up play and Kevin De Bruyne and all that. And if you're suddenly faced with a couple of players who've just come in from injury or whatever, but generally speaking, they're able to raise it for the biggest of games, even against, let's say, Chelsea right before the international break, and Chelsea were giving them a really, really good game, and it looked like Man City couldn't really get a foothold in the match, and suddenly they were ahead. Like they hadn't really done much, and even after the Haaland opener, when Chelsea really turned it around, still within 2 minutes of the second half restarted, City were back ahead 3-2.
Yeah.
So this is not a side who, when they're not playing well, you can beat them, and that's the end of the story. Like they will go and go and go again.
Oh yeah.
And then, like even probably at the 4-3, they probably thought that they had that game won, with another late 86-minute goal. So it is exceptionally difficult. But is it the best time for Liverpool to play them? Maybe in league terms. I mean, I just spoke about only three wins out of the last 6 in Premier League terms, but in all competitions, you're looking at 5 wins out of the last 6, and the other one's a draw, which was against Chelsea, 4-4. They're also now playing 3 home games in a row with Leipzig and Spurs to come. And the Leipzig one in the middle, obviously, Champions League, City already done. Leipzig are already done for that matter. So that could be a game of total rotation and rest and everything else. They had fewer of their key players obviously playing major minutes in the international break. And whatever, if you want to choose about the 12:30 and the away from home, then obviously those things maybe edge in their favour by a marginal percentage or two as well. But as I said, I don't really want to look for that for an excuse already before kickoff, before the match. We should go into this match every bit as fired up and every bit thinking about not losing this game at the very least, as they will be. And they will be keen to sort of make sure that the Premier League and beyond that can see that, yeah, Liverpool might go into this game second, but we're still 3-4 goals better than them. And we'll make sure that we show that. That's going to be their approach, nothing else. I think it'll be an extraordinary performance if Liverpool don't lose this game. And we're capable of producing the extraordinary, but so are they.
Yeah, I mean, for certain, both teams have proven it in the past. I'm giving them no credit for 2 wins over young boys, though, because I reckon their under-23s could have won both of those games. So I'm choosing to focus on the fact they've only won 3 of their last 6 games. But no, like we should also point out there's one other team that caused them a lot of trouble this year. And funnily enough, it was Sheffield United at Bramall Lane who went at them. And in the end, City won the game with a late goal. But Sheffield United caused them a lot of problems that game as well. But I think the bigger factor with City, the Rodri suspension was huge, but also the fact that Pep continues to chop and change. He hasn't settled on, this is my 11 and this is what we're going to do, which is what he did at the end of last season. He sort of settled in on, we're going to have Walker, Diaz, Aki, Stones, Rodri, and then whichever of the 4 behind, it'll be KDB and Gundogan. The wingers will rotate a little bit, but it's largely going to be either Bernardo, Grealish, or Foden, 2 from those 3, and Haaland will be up front. And that's the team, and that's what we're settling into. But the defensive thing, Akanji was the one kind of rotating in and out, keeping people fresh. But the starting 5 largely became the starting 5. This season, it's been very much a case of let's get everybody their games. And Kyle Walker's played all 12 games. Diaz has played 10. John Stones only played 4. Aki has played 9. Rodri has played 10. Obviously missed the 2 through suspension. Gvardiol has played in 9. And Akanji has played in 9. So obviously not everybody getting all of those as starts, but he's getting them all as many games as he can, so that when it comes to the business end of the season, they're not coming in cold, that they are very much in rhythm. And Jurgen talks about rhythm as well, about getting players minutes here, there, and wherever you can to make sure that when you need them, they're ready to go. I would expect them to line up with Walker. I wonder if he goes Walker, Akanji, Diaz, Gvardiol as a back 4.
Yeah.
And then plays Rodri and Bernardo as a double pivot with Alvarez as a 10 behind Haaland. And then I think the question is Grealish or Doku, because I think Foden will start. So does he go Grealish or Doku on the left wing? If he wants to try and expose Trent, he probably goes Doku, but I feel like he might want a bit more control because he doesn't have that second physical presence in midfield without John Stones. And Bernardo's an incredible footballer, much better footballer than John Stones, but he doesn't offer that same level of control and the ability to kind of just keep the game where they want it. And with Núñez out and Kovacic out, I think it'll be him. So I think he might go Grealish, and I think he might look to be a little bit more conservative.
Possibly that, or if he does want slightly more conservative, he's got Rico Lewis, who's played in that central role quite a bit as well. And then you've got Bernardo to push forward into the supporting line as well.
That's the thing. He's got great options. I mean, look, he could play Calvin Phillips. He could play
He
Calvin Phillips and Rodri. He won't, but he could.
won't.
I wouldn't be. I think he should personally. I think Calvin Phillips next to Rodri would actually be a really good pairing, but he won't do that. They've got really good options, right? Ederson starts without question. I think what Pep is now doing with some of these players in international duty is akin to what Ferguson used to do, where he's almost inventing injuries to hold them back or have them left out of international games. And he's telling them, like, milk any injury. If it's a game that doesn't matter and you don't need to be there, just milk it. And I think that's what a lot of them are doing.
In terms of Doku, he's the more informed player. He's the obviously the faster, the better dribbler, all the rest of it. I wonder whether that's a reason to keep him sub, though, and literally have him as an impact player. I think it might be a bit of a knock-on in terms of how fresh Alvarez is, and obviously exactly how fit Haaland is. We assume he'll start. I think he certainly will, but maybe he's not 100%. So if he is okay, and if Alvarez is perfectly fine, fighting fit and ready, and not too tired, and all the rest of it, and he starts as well, then I can see the case for Grealish, because you've got goal getters, basically people who are going to get in the box, take on shots, be able to hold up play or beat them one-on-one as well. If that's the case, then you can play Grealish as more of that linking player and later on have a very explosive option off the bench. But if, let's say, Alvarez is just too tired to come back, let's say, and Silva plays in that role, and he's not likely to get in the box and so on, maybe then Doku starts ahead of Grealish because he is someone who will get into their extra penalty box presence, someone else who's going to take on a lot of shots and so on.
Someone who actually does things as opposed to just falling over and winning free kicks. I would be telling our starting centre-backs, whoever starts next to Virgil, the first time you go up against Haaland, just hit him. Just drive an elbow into his back or something. Not in a violent way, just, a little tester, because two of his last 4 games, Bournemouth and the game for Norway, he's had to go off with this injury. And Pep says it's the same injury. It's one that's really sore what did Pep say here? It's really sore at the time, but then it gets better shortly after. It was much same as what happened against Bournemouth a week and a half ago. It's actually 3 of his last 4 games he's been hurt with this. It hurts a lot right away, then it goes away pretty quickly. But if you can hurt him to the point where he might, just have 20 minutes at a pop where he's kind of a passenger, might just be worth testing and seeing what that injury is and whether or not he can hold up. Moving on to us, we have some decisions to make as well that will be kind of influenced by who's available. So Thiago is out, Andy Robertson is out. Alexis is back. We will hope that Curtis is back. We will hope that Gravenberch is back. We will hope that Joe Gomez is back. We will hope that Ibu is back. There's a lot of hope going on here. And Besetic is out because the tiny injury turns out to be something bigger. Assuming Curtis, Gravenberch, Joe, and Ibu are back, which they all should be. They all had the international break off. They were all given the game beforehand off. They've all had 2 to 3 weeks now to get themselves right. What are you expecting from Liverpool in terms of a shape, and what's your starting goalkeeper back for? Well, we know who the goalkeeper is, but what's your starting back for?
Virgil, if he's fit, I'd have Konate. If he's not, Matip. I think Matip's been pretty good, actually, recently, especially compared to last season's performances. So I wouldn't have concerns if Konate's not available in the way that sometimes we did last year. But I think you still go with Matip, with Konate as your choice, just with the extra speed, agility, willingness to sort of step out and challenge and that kind of thing, and still have the ability to turn and get back into position. Trent on the right, obviously, and Costas left, I guess.
I'd play Joe Gomez right back.
I don't need a VPN. I've got nothing to hide. This is what I used to tell myself before I hooked up with LibertyShield.com. Not only is my home internet now fully encrypted, but I can now access all the websites I want, whenever I want, and do so from absolutely anywhere. As a Liverpool fan, I love to know I can now watch every match, regardless of whether it's on UK TV or not. My Liberty Shield VPN makes sure nothing is blocked and guarantees me super fast streaming speed throughout that match. You can get connected right now with their software package, which includes a 48-hour no-obligation free trial and instant access to their apps for Apple, Android, Fire TV, PC, Mac, and Android TV. Or go a step further like I have and get one of their pre-configured VPN routers. These small but powerful devices allow you to easily connect every device in your home to VPN, making it the perfect solution for smart TVs, Mag boxes, and games consoles. Visit LibertyShield.com today and use coupon code AIVPN25 to get 25% off at checkout.
I'd go Joe, Ibu, or Matip, depending on Ibu's fitness, Virgil and Costas. I want Joe Gomez in the team at right back at the moment. I just think we're a little bit too open for my liking. I don't like the galaxy-brained 3-box shape. And I think if you've got any lapse in your defensive rotation, the one team you don't want to play is City. I think you have to be more disciplined than what Trent will allow you to be if he's doing that inverting role. And I also want Trent to start in midfield, which is the bigger point here. If
we were to start with a 4-4-2, I'd agree, but not in a
That's
3.
what I want him to do. That's what I have a feeling he might do. Is go with a 4-4-2. Either a 4-box-2, where Trent is in a double pivot with, let's say, Curtis, and Dominic and Alexis have the more advanced roles, or a flat 4-4-2 in which Trent plays right side, and Alexis and Curtis play in the double pivot, and Dominic is left side. Luis Diaz.
I don't think we're going to see. Sorry, go on.
Luis Diaz is only getting back from South America. I think he'll start off the bench. I know Darwin and Alexis are only coming back as well, but Alexis didn't play in our last league game, so he might just be a little bit fresher. It wouldn't surprise me if he goes with Jota and Salah as a front two, and then Trent, Alexis, Curtis, and Dominic as a midfield 4.
I mean, it's very difficult, obviously, to know what physical state they're in, but ideal scenario has got to be starting Darwin if he's fit enough and he's got the energy to do an hour. Like, he was playing very, very well beforehand, didn't score against Brentford, but assisted, hit the bar, goals ruled out, everything but score, and have it count, basically. Went away, scored against Argentina in a win, scored twice against Bolivia in a win, didn't play the full 90 there as well. So I know it's only a 15-minute thing, but
if Darwin's good to go, then Darwin should start without question. No question, Darwin should be starting.
Especially
but if he's
when we're looking at talking about the lack of not cohesion necessarily, but partnerships that they have at the minute, players who are going to upset them and just keep going and keep going and keep going. Darwin's top of that right now,
without question. Now, Jota definitely has his merits in that kind of role as well, but I would want Darwin. Like, Jota would be the best approximation of Darwin in terms of foot speed, relentlessness, and obviously he's a better finisher than Darwin. He doesn't have the physical presence of Darwin, but he's really good in the air and he doesn't have any fear. He doesn't hold back. But I would like to see Jurgen kind of marry what he did last season at Anfield to what he did a couple of years ago at the Etihad with that 4-4-2 and strike a balance of, we're going to be really disciplined defensively, but we're also going to commit to attacking these when we have the opportunity. We're going to take advantage of the fact that this defence can get ragged. This defence does have some areas of weakness. They don't like pace. They don't like a physical presence. We're going to run Darwin through the middle. Mo's going to play off him and drift around. and pick his spots like he has been from the right, but we're going to do it in a more central area, as he did at home last year against them. And with Trent and Dominic in the wide areas, you're going to have elite delivery, as well as Dominic cutting inside and having the ability to shoot. Plus then Dominic helps cost us out defensively. So you've got more strength down that side defensively. And obviously with Joe behind Trent, you've got more strength that side. And I do think the best double pivot we have available, if everybody's fit, is Alexis and Curtis Jones.
Do you expect Jones to be fit to start? Obviously, fitness is a bit of a misnomer because we don't even know whether he's like full training at the minute. But let's assume he's available. Do you think he comes straight back in? Is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, the question would be: does he come back in, or does Endo stay in the team? Really, I mean, because Gravenberch has the knee issue, so bringing him back is as much a thing as bringing Curtis back in a way. Now, Klopp did say that Gravenberch would definitely be back after the international break. He just said with Curtis, he will be back. He didn't say definitely or for the first game. But I don't want to go there and start Endo, is the be all and the end all of it.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Like, I would have great concern if we went there and played Endo against Manchester City. I think he would look like someone who'd won a raffle.
And you know what? We're going to need him for 20, 30 minutes at least, because Alexis is unlikely, after playing 90 against Brazil in the Maracanã, to come back and play 90 against Man City.
So
Alexis, so
I would rather start Curtis and Alexis and then have Endo and potentially Gravenberch to bring off the bench. And you can change the shape in game if need be. You can move things around, but I'd like us to go there and set our stall out of this is how we're here to play. This is what we're going to do. You come and try and beat us, but be aware that we can very easily get behind you and we will cause you lots of problems.
If Jones, let's say, is unavailable or unavailable to start, would you be more inclined to go Alexis and Szoboszlai as the pairing in the middle, or Alexis and Trent? And then Jota obviously becomes your extra winger.
Harvey would become my extra winger in this scenario. I'd probably move Trent centrally, leave Dominic on the left, and bring Harvey in on the right.
Harvey over Jota?
Harvey over Jota, without doubt for me. In a wide role, without question. I think Harvey offers an awful lot more in a wide role than Jota does. Jota will offer goals. Harvey offers everything else. Build up, creativity. I think he's just more positionally savvy out there than Jota is. Jota can be a bit of a headless chicken when he's out wide. And he can also just drift centrally and leave large swaths of space that teams can play into. And it's one, like, the other thing is I don't particularly like Diogo Jota off the right. I don't think he performs well there. I think he always wants to be moving infield too much. Whereas on the left, I think he'll hold the left wing position more disciplined. So you could move Dominic to the right, or like you said, you could play Trent on the right and go with Dominic in the middle. But I'd rather have Dominic in a wide role, because I'd rather have Dominic running at one of those fullbacks, because I think Walker's obviously got really good pace, but Kyle Walker's a flawed defender. If you run at Kyle Walker and go on his inside shoulder and cut infield on him, he has a tendency to jump in, to pull, to drag, to give away silly free kicks. If you play Dominic on the right, I don't think Josko Gvardiol would deal with him all that well, because he hasn't dealt with pace and power all that well since coming to the league. So, but I would go with Harvey. I think Harvey would just offer you more if you're moving Trent centrally into a double pivot.
Yeah, I think that the 4 definitely offers us more flexibility in terms of not just build-up play, but in-game switches as well, because all of those players would be able to shift to a 3, to a 3 at the back as well, to be fair. Depending on obviously whether Gomez starts or not. Should point out, Kostas didn't play during the international break for Greece, but I think that was more to do with a lingering suspension, and they're going to have playoff matches to play. So that seems to be the issue. He was left out rather than any injury worries.
He did have an interesting little embrace with Kylian Mbappe, which, I mean, tells us one thing and one thing only. Costa Simicas to PSG 2024. Book it now, print the shirts. um, Look, we'd have all taken, going into this game, a point behind them if you'd offered it to us at the start of the season. We all would have just jumped on this. The whole thing, we said this all summer. As long as we can stay close to City, they're the only team really that we need to keep any attention on. All the rest is just noise. If we can be close to City at the turn of the year, and we can go in January and strengthen a little bit more and set ourselves up to have a real shot at things in the back half of the season. Like, I don't have any expectation that we win the league this year. I don't think you do either. But if we go into the turn of the year and we're a point or 3 points behind City, even 4 or 5 points behind City, we'll be in a really strong position to meet our aim for this year, which is to get back into top 4. And right now, we're in a really strong position. We've had some ups and downs, a few disappointing performances. You know, I would say one really poor result, which is the draw away to Luton. Because I think you look at the other results, and I did this on Two Footed last week. If you look at, actually I did it on Monday. If you look at the results of each team, like a draw away to Chelsea is not a bad result. A defeat away to Spurs is not a bad result because Spurs are really good. The manner of it made it hurt a lot more than the fact that we lost a game to a top 4 rival. A draw away to Brighton is not a bad result. The only bad result we have this year in the league is that draw with Luton. That's it. For City, their only bad result is the defeat to Wolves. Because when you look at the league table and City are top and Wolves are sitting in 12th, that's one that City would want back. Drawing at Chelsea, losing to Arsenal, they're not bad results because they're good teams or big rivals. Both teams have had one bad result. That's the way I look at it. I think regardless of the outcome here, if we lose there, it's not a bad result. It'll be disappointing. But they're Man City, they're at home. It's not a bad result. The same way if they lose to us later in the season at Anfield, it's not a bad result for them. It's about what you do in those other games. So this game is not season-defining in any way. But the reaction from this game is what will be important. Now, ideally, we want to go there and get a result. But if we don't, it's how we come out of that. We come out of that game, we play Fulham home, Sheffield United away, Crystal Palace away, Manchester United home. That's a favourable 4-game run. They come out of their game, they go Tottenham home, Villa away, so 2 really tough games back-to-back, Luton away, Palace home. I would say, even if we were to lose this game, over the following 4 games, we have the opportunity to make back that ground on them. So go there, try and get the result, but if it doesn't happen, it's not something to be downhearted about. You just pick yourself up and you go again the following week. And we will have more opportunities to close ground on them. What's your prediction for this one?
17-4.
To Man City?
No. We got Alisson in goal.
Oh, that's true. That's very true.
I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to say 2-2.
2-2. What would you line up as? Just quickly, what actually you didn't what would your lineup be? So you went Trent, Ibu or Matip, Virgil, Costas. What's the rest of it looking like for you? With and without Curtis Jones?
So I would play the 4-4-2, as I said, and I'd push Trent forward, but I don't think we will. I think it'll still be the 3-3 to set up. So I think it'll be Trent right back, and then think it'll be Alexis, Szoboszlai, and Jones. If Jones is missing, I think Endo starts and we push Alexis forward. And the 3 up top, I would expect Jota, Salah, and Darwin to start.
Yeah, Diaz with the travel and that as well, I think he's probably the one, and just everything he's been through in the last couple of weeks. Though I will say, his performance against Brazil, I know it's not an all-time Brazil team. It's a little bit ropey defensively, and that manager, I know he just won the Copa Libertadores, but that guy's an idiot. That guy has absolutely no idea what he's doing defensively. And that Boca team they beat in the Copa Libertadores are garbage, like utter garbage. They're like 17th or 18th in the combined Argentine table right now. That performance that Luis Diaz put in was absolutely breathtaking. Like, that's the type of stuff he was doing pre-Arsenal injury. And if he can get back to that level, that's another thing that's going to boost us moving forward. I like your team. I think you're probably right. I think he probably will go with the 4-3-3. I just really like him to be a bit more outside the box, really. And do something that they're not going to be expecting. I don't think they expect Trent to line up on the right side of midfield. But Trent has been really clear. He doesn't really want to play right back anymore. And I think his performances show that he doesn't want to do it anymore. Doesn't want to do the defensive side of it anymore. But if they play Doku, that's to get at Trent. If we can counter that by playing Gomez, I think Gomez 1v1 can do a really good job against Jeremy Doku, purely by stopping the ball getting to him, which teams have done that this season. Doku's been exciting in some games. He's had a couple of complete duds because teams just stop the ball getting to him or force him onto his left foot all the time because he doesn't have a good left foot. You've gone 2-2. Will I be really brave and just go for the win? I don't feel like we'll win the game. I don't really believe in this prediction, but I'm going to say 2-1 to Liverpool. I'm going to say 2-1 with Darwin grabbing a brace.
I hope you're right.
So do I. Lisa Marie, let me just say, I don't believe in that prediction. I'm just being brave. And because he's gone with a draw, I feel, because I think a draw, and I think you could be right. I think 2-2 wouldn't surprise me. But I just want to be different, so I'll go for the win. Why not? Right, that will do us for today. We will have another podcast to come out this week, probably after the game, where we've answered a whole bunch of questions off Discord. We obviously had the one that came out earlier this week, where we did our Premier League teams of the 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and then our most disappointing team of this season so far. Karl, is there anything else you want to plug or touch on? Anything else you've written that you want people to be aware of? Anything new coming?
I'll have a piece on the game before the weekend, probably Friday morning out, I would imagine. The only thing I want to touch on is we didn't specifically talk about Man City's home record. So in light of our predictions, we should just whatever the opposite of doubling down is and just point out that they are 5 from 5 on home soil and they've only conceded 3 this season. So it does need one hell of a performance for Liverpool to take anything.
Yeah, it does. It's going to be an unbelievable performance if we can go there and get anything. But look, other teams have gone there and gotten results in the past. Yes, this season they've been very, very good at home, but let's also factor in Newcastle went there and didn't try to win. Fulham went there and City got some very questionable refereeing decisions which helped them to a comfortable win. They beat Nottingham Forest, who are garbage away. They beat Brighton, who haven't won since September. And they beat Bournemouth, who kind of rolled over for them. It's not like they've beaten the best of the best at home. Last season, they lost a couple of games at home. I seem to remember, actually, they lost once at home. I seem to remember, Brentford went there and beat them about a year ago. So if Brentford can go and do it, we can go and do it. Up the Reds.
We hope you enjoyed listening to this Anfield Index show. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel so future podcasts find their way to your device automatically. There's nothing quite like fan engagement, and we'd love to know what you think of anything discussed on this show. The best way to get in touch is over on our free Discord community, where both podcasters and listeners debate the hottest LFC topics 24/7. Sign up free now at AnfieldIndex.com/Discord. You won't regret it. You can also follow us on Twitter at Anfield Index and find us on Facebook by searching for Anfield Index. Oh, and before you go, we'd love it if you could leave us a 5-star review on your favourite podcast app. It only takes a couple of seconds, and it means the world to the people who create these free shows.
Sports Social Podcast Network.